Okay guys, welcome back to another video. I am on camera. Hello. We've got season 6 for PD2 coming up in a couple days. I wanted to give kind of a high level breakdown of the patch notes and what it means for changes to the game and what you can expect from the new meta, and maybe start planning what you want to build. So I've gone through the notes a few times now, and I've made my own kind of little preliminary notes here, but basically I've broken it down into nerfs and buffs. So we'll start with the nerfs, because there's really not that many. Overall, the biggest nerf is to ranged Amazons. So Bozon is nerfed, and Jabazon is nerfed, the ranged version of it. There are a couple other nerfs here and there that are pretty small, and usually they're accompanied by a buff that kind of equalizes it out. But for the most part, there's not that many nerfs going on this season. Everything else is being kind of buffed. So let's go over some big ones. So first of all, durability on items is reducing by 50%. So this means that rune words are going to have more options for bases, and there'll be more items that you can use that are not going to be annoying to use with the, with the increased durability loss there. So that's cool. All melee are buffed across the board for a number of reasons. The big one is that melee splash now deals the skill damage rather than just the attack damage. This is a massive buff to every melee class you can think of. They've also, along with this huge buff, they've also giving another buff. So all melee have one range added to attacks made against moving targets. So this will make playing melee classes a lot more fun, because you're not going to be missing as much. So if stuff's moving. And this really comes down to mobs like Fallens that will scatter and run away, and you'll attack and you'll just miss because they moved. That type of stuff you should be missing less. So melee's got a huge buff there. Casters. So most casters have been buffed in the form that channeled abilities now can proc chance to cast on cast every kind of frame. So there were some abilities that didn't get much use, like Inferno and Arctic Blast, and I think there's a couple others, but some of those caster builds have been buffed now, because now they can utilize the new chance to cast on cast mechanics they added last season. Mercenaries got buffed. Basically, when you have open wounds now applied to a mercenary, they're going to take much less damage from it. There were a few maps that had some open wounds business going on, and it would kill your merc often and kind of make those maps unplayable for a lot of people. But now that that's been changed, hopefully mercs can survive a little longer now. And they've also added another change. Mercs open wounds damage is now reduced on pets and mercs by damage reduction. So that's good. Those are sort of like the generalized things. So melee's got a huge buff, and some channeling caster abilities got buffed as well. And mercenaries are easier to survive. Now there's some new stuff, some general new stuff that's been added that's like high level. Mercenaries can now trigger chance to cast on cast. So that means the Act 3 mercs are now able to cast spells when they're casting their spells. So that's really nice. They've added magic damage percentage large charms. So this is a big buff to any magic based build that is going to utilize them. Now it'll be a question of whether or not you're going to use skillers or the other new item, but regardless, there will be some builds that use these new large charms, and it's a pretty good buff for them, and happy to see that in the game. single target builds. I think this is the biggest change in the whole. This is where season 6 is. Like, the whole thing is that they've added this new thing called Orb of Fortification. So it's a material sold at Anya, and what it does is you apply it to a map, and it reduces the density by half, but also doubles the monster's health, doubles the XP they grant, increases the damage they do by 20%, and the kicker, most importantly, drops twice as much loot. Okay? So what this basically means now is that you can turn a map into like a less dense map that will have the same benefits of farming, which means that like, this is a massive paradigm shift for Diablo 2, because before it was all about how fast can you kill the most amount of things to farm, right? And so every build that did that was an AoE build, and it was a build with high mobility, and it was a build with like little downtime. So what are some examples of this? Dragon Din is one, multi-shot bow is one, combustion sork is another. So things that got excluded from farming were the single target builds, and previously all they were really useful for was dueling or Ubers. But now single target builds or less AoE builds will have a place in the game, which is amazing. So this is the biggest change, because it's going to make like 50% of the spells in the game now you can have a build around it. Like, you can be a sacrifice paladin and farm maps, and it can make sense, or a smite paladin can now farm maps and make sense, or like a Javazon that's melee now makes sense again. Most of the barb builds got a buff from this, because they were notoriously just bad because they didn't do any AoE damage for the melee stuff. So Frenzy Barb, huge buff. Concentrate Barb, huge buff. Basically all these builds that are there that are strong, but they just don't have an AoE component, now all of a sudden they have a place in the game. So this is what I'm most excited about. This changes the whole mentality on what's good and what's bad, because now you don't need to be AoEing everything on your screen in order to farm. So there's value in a lot of items now before that support these builds that were not useful, and we're going to be seeing a big change to the marketplace, and really happy about this change. And I think you should be able to fortify more than once. So like, I think you should be able to make it like, I think you should make mobs like you should be able to crunch down the map to be like 1/10 the size of density and make it the appropriate difficulty for what's left over. I think having like different levels of that are going to really, and I think for season 7 they're going to do something like that, and also go the other way too, where you can double the density and make them drop less loot, right? And so builds that really excel at AoE and things like that, they'll. Anyways, that's just some conjecture there, but huge buff to all of the single target builds that previously weren't played. So amazing changes. Wisp, the ring, has been buffed. Heart of the Wolverine has been basically buffed because they fixed some errors with it. So expect Wisp price to go up. Defiance Aura now gives PDR, so physical damage reduction you get from soft points and Defiance Aura now. So that's a good change for paladins, and also for anyone who uses the Act 2 Merc. So you're going to be seeing those being used more often. Another huge change is Sanctuary Aura now reduces magic damage percentage, like resistances on mobs. So now we have a way to break magic communities. So they're probably going to add more magic communities to the game so that they can be broken with Sanctuary Aura. And then, of course, everything around Sanctuary Aura has been updated as well. Like Lawbringer doesn't have it anymore. Azure Wrath had its Sanctuary Aura reduced heavily. And so it's all good things. But another huge change is Blaze gives Cannot Be Frozen. There's a few items that proc Blaze in the game. So now if you proc blaze, you don't need cannot be frozen on your gear. That's a big change. Enhanced damage on armor, rune words, and regular weapons across the board has all been increased. On everything except for like 1 or 2 items where it's been nerfed. But for the most part, it's a massive buff to any physical based classes. Like I know Goblin Toes are buffed, Rattle Cage is buffed, Fortitude's buffed, just to name a few that I saw. But basically you're going to be getting a lot more enhanced damage now out of your stuff. They're trying to push Freezedin. So there's a new rune word that's been added, level 16, Holy Freeze. And Doom has now been upgraded to be level 16. So you can get a level 32. We'll look into that in a video in the future, see if it's viable, but that's a big change. They've added a new rune word that has a chance to proc Fist of the Heavens, and also it has a Sanctuary Aura. The main thing here is that it has Sanctuary Aura, so you can put it on mercs to get Magic Pierce. And a lot of items that had chance to proc a level 10 fireball, the level of the fireball has been increased dramatically. So Breath of the Dying has been increased a lot of gloves, different rings like Carrion Wind, Wind Force, all the proc based items have seen a buff, so we might see some kind of proc based things going on this season. I'm not going to get into individual changes to classes. No, for the most part, other than the Amazon, everything has been pretty much buffed. You can check out your favorite class. Quick overview though. Magic Arrow Zon's been buffed. Multi-Shot's been nerfed. Valkyrie's been a little bit nerfed. Assassins, everything has been buffed basically. Barbs, there's some buffs to leap attack and concentrate. And they nerfed weapon throw a little bit. Druids, buffs all around. Necros, Poisono has been nerfed a little bit. And they've changed some stuff with the aura radius of curses. Paladins, Holy Shock buffed. Sanctuary reworked and buffed. Holy Freeze buffed. Holy Fire slight nerf. Smite has AoE now. Oh yeah, Assassin's Kick is AoE. Buffs for Sorks. Anyway, that's it for this video. I have COVID, so it's been a rough week, but I'm hoping to get some more videos out for the next couple weeks coming up with season 6 here. Do my usual thing with the Paladin, get Plug Y working, get the item pack, and go offline and really test everything out. And I'm really excited to see what the changes are. So, yeah, see you guys later.